Okay, we are now in a public session. Our first order of business is, and I will move this, that we move the proposals on the progress report and the priority projects and the CFA scoring recommendations. I'll move that. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ken Knuckles. Any discussion on this? Stuart Applebaum?
Yes, I'd like to note that I'm going to abstain. My concern relates to the nature of the jobs that are being created, and I would like to get more information before I'm in a position to vote. Thank you.
And we will certainly do that, and working with you, Stuart. Yes.
I don't have a recusal sheet. Are those part of the package?
I have it. I thought everybody received a. It's just, all it is the listing of the projects, and we will designate each of them after the vote. Okay. So.
Okay.
All right. We have it recorded for the record. Any other questions? This has been moved. Let me ask for a vote. All in favor of in accepting the progress report, the priority projects, and the CFA recommendations, please hold your hand up so we can vote. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Opposed? We have one abstention. Recorded. The action succeeds. I want to thank all members of the council again for their attention and for their good work. And again, for the public, I want to thank Kathy Wild for her exemplary work in steering the writing committee, along with assistance from Suri Deitch helping, and the rest of the committee. And I want to thank also Ken Knuckles and his committee for the very, very difficult and long job of scoring all of these projects. Thank you both, and thank all members of the council. Let me now call on Brian Quiera, who is representing, I'm sorry?
He included it.
Yeah, it's all included. The vote was 13 in favor, 1 abstention, and no negative votes. Brian, do you want to say a few things for us, please, on behalf of the governor, Lieutenant Governor?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Brian Chiara. I'm the Lieutenant Governor's Policy Director, and on his behalf, he sends his regrets first that he was unable to attend today's this morning's meeting. He's attending to a personal matter up in Rochester, but he also wanted to send his appreciation on, and he would have said this on behalf of the governor, their continued appreciation for all of the hard work and the commitment and dedication of this council and all of the councils as we go around the state. I just have 3 very quick matters as far as updates. One, as you're doing here this morning, all of our councils across the state are finalizing their progress reports. Those are due to the state next week, and then the governor's staff will spend the next couple of months evaluating all of the applications, all of the reports, and they look forward to doing so. Second, we anticipate that it will be another round of tours this year in each region. Last year, as you recall, the governor and the lieutenant governor went around the state, and each region had an opportunity to showcase all of its efforts. All the priority projects that they included in their reports, in a way of demonstrating the various innovation and other progress that they were making. So we anticipate that will happen again. We think it'll happen in October or in November. So again, I think each region will, kind of circle back internally, figure out which projects best showcase the region and the efforts they're making. And we look forward to, to touring each of the regions again. And then lastly, is just that the award ceremony where the governor will be announcing, which regions win the various level of prizes. We anticipate that that'll happen again in December. Nothing has been finalized yet, but we anticipate that we'll be finalizing these plans shortly. So that was my.
Thank you very much, Mr. Queer. We very much appreciate the work of the Lieutenant Governor, and please convey our thanks to him for his hard work, and thank you for being here. I'd like to call on Margaret Tobin, please, who is the Executive Director of the New York Works Task Force, who we've asked to make a presentation on New York State's first ever 10-year statewide capital plan. Welcome, Ms. Tobin.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you for having me today. I think the work that the Regional Economic Development Council is doing is really quite remarkable in changing the course of New York State and its economic history. You are the 10th out of 10 regional economic development councils that we've gone around the state this summer presenting the first ever 10-year capital plan. So what I'm going to do is just take you through some slides that kind of bring the highlights up, and we'll take any questions. But I look forward to an ongoing conversation. I get a chance to work with Joe Taswell quite a bit, as well as Mehul and other colleagues around the room. Let's see, now comes the tricky part. There we go. So the 10-year plan, we put it out in May. It's published online. It's at the ESD website, the New York State, New York Works website, as well as the governor's website. So there's places you can find it. I think the chancellor and all elected officials received copies of it, but it's quite a significant document. What we did is we rolled up 10 years of projected capital spending for the state. It's a total of 47 state agencies and authorities which spend or invest capital money across the state, 47. So if you wondered why New York State was a little confusing, that's one of the reasons. When you add it up, it's $174 billion over 10 years. And one of the purposes of the New York Works Task Force is to try to figure out how best to generate economic opportunity and job growth, to really put that at center stage. The agencies and authorities were organized by sector as well as by region. You're very familiar, obviously, with the 10 RADCs. By sector, we looked at the big movers, transportation, environment, et cetera, education. And just in terms of looking at all 47 agencies and authorities at once, enabled us to really get a hold of how much government resources can be brought to bear to look at how we really can speed development. So the strategic plan in general looks at the role of infrastructure in supporting the economy, the connections between the capital investment, the economic development projects that you all were talking about today, and of course the increasingly competitive global economy that we live within. New York State is a really diverse state, and New York City, as you know, is about half of the residents of the state, but is a very different place than the balance of the state. We have a lot of challenges, but also a lot of strengths. So it starts to point to, sorry, I'm not quite used to this clicker. The overall goal is within the New York State Division of Budget economic models, they are projecting a 5% growth rate over the next 10 years. If we can increase that by just 1%, we would grow to an additional $200 billion in economic activity. We're currently a $1.2 trillion economy. We'd get to $2.2 trillion. So the kinds of jobs that we're talking about creating and the kind of economic activity that's available and opportunities that are available for New Yorkers starts to increase when we can start to hone in on our strategy. What we then did is we looked at the $174 billion by sector. You can see transportation is the lion's share of that with about $106 billion, and then the rest are, education, as the chancellor's very aware, and the other, economic development. Sorry. We sliced it down by state of good repair. With an older state like New York State's, much of the infrastructure spending will go toward keeping the existing systems in a state of good repair, and the two drivers will be what we call capacity optimization, as well as transformational initiatives. The very important issue is criteria, and in your discussion today, you talked about quite a bit of this. A real issue is system, not project. In the complex economy that we live in, every system is related to every other system. So if you talk about St. George's Terminal, the ferry's there, what is there to do when you get off? How does that fit with Northern Staten Island? And how does that all work together? And what you're trying to do with the project that you discussed was to make it a place that people will, come and stay and spend money. In terms of environmental and financial sustainability, obviously we've all lived through Sandy, and the environmental effects of that and what that means to us has become paramount to how we think about things. And return on investment in this context is meant both as a social return on investment, what kinds of jobs are getting created, whether they're union wage level, prevailing wage, or they're not, and is that sustainable over the long haul? Within each of the sectors, then we broke it down. So if you, sorry, did I go back? There we go. Transportation. Transportation alone, there's 15 agencies and authorities within the state. And the question is, how do we get them all to coordinate with each other, plan together, and really push forward in a way that's rational and optimizes the investments that we're making. The largest category, transportation, $113 billion. As you can see, the bulk of that in that particular sector is state of good repair. What we then did for each of the 47 agencies and authorities is just look at the facts, at a glance, how many miles of bridges, how many schools in the case of schools, et cetera. And you start to really understand the complexity of the state and the complexity of the infrastructure that we have. In the case of transportation, one of the highlighted projects is the Kosciuszko Bridge, which is very close to awarding under a design-build contract and will be, accelerated as part of the New York Works Task Force. We expect literally 160,000 drivers who currently experience all sorts of traffic jams to be able to, I don't know if you'll ever fly across the Kosciuszko Bridge, but to, in any case, meet federal highway standards. We then rolled up all the budgets and all the level of spending, how it fit into each category, and then the sources of financing for each of those. The real issue, though, the real opportunity here is this investment by region idea. So you can see here the 10 REDCs. New York City is obviously the biggest and most complicated in terms of population, if not geographically. And what we're looking to try to do through this effort is to invest our capital dollars to best leverage the potential of each region. One of the things that you've all seen repeatedly every time that the REDCs come together is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to how we do capital investment. So the overall 10-year budget includes your work from the strategic plan. This is the highlights of the plan that was published last year for the next capital budget, what you're thinking and planning and general idea about how best to grow New York City's economy and provide opportunities for all gets baked into how we start thinking about the capital investment, capital allocation process. So, we've talked repeatedly about the silos, breaking down the silos, which represents each of the agencies and authorities, to get the wisdom of the REDCs, the fact that you have a broader view of New York City and what it needs, and how we bake that into the decision-making that each of the agencies and authorities will take direction on, will become a very powerful force for economic growth. We're going through an economic analysis process. I'm not going to go through, this is a little bit technical in terms of looking at, and I can't actually see it at this level, so But essentially, it's the classic consultant's upper outer quadrant. High growth, high economic growth, high job development is upper outer. You then focus on the industries in that upper outer quadrant by looking at SIC codes, the businesses that you have. And then this is the top where you really focus in, so you can see in purple is real estate and the kinds of jobs that exist in that sector. So you start to look and see, well, what is it that we can do as a government on the infrastructure investment side that supports higher growth, higher job development industries where you're beating the national average in terms of GDP. And finally, of course, you have to talk about how to finance the plan. In this first iteration of it, we really just essentially rolled up the debt of the state. People talk about that. I think we're going to need to grow ourselves out of the debt that we're in, but when you actually look across the whole apparatus and what our balance sheet looks like, we're in a reasonably strong position competitively in the global economy. So for next steps, and we'll certainly be coming back to you, we're working with Division of Budget to look at an assessment of what assets we actually own, which, not surprisingly, when you look at 47 different, I mean, you can think of them as divisions, everybody does it differently. We need to get to a point where we start to understand the assets that we have and the state of repair that they are in, and develop a project selection criteria and project merits, working both with the Implementation Council comprised of all the agencies and authorities, and then ultimately taking input from the REDC, from you, in terms of what projects you'd like to see, what projects you think will really help push forward the general economy of the city of New York. And I'll take any questions if you have them.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tobin. Any questions by the council? You have a lot on your plate, and we're happy to be playing a part of that. Thank you
Great.
very much
Thank you,
for
Chancellor.
coming. Before we conclude,
Kathy had a question.
sorry. Oh, question. I'm sorry, Kathy.
Are there any, hi Margaret, thank
Hi.
you. Are there any plans in terms of legislative initiatives this year to sort of advance the capital program, public-private partnerships, anything that's going on with any kind of plans for our next session?
I don't think there's anything that we have a lot of tools in the toolbox already. I mean, say the Kosciuszko Bridge, we're using the design build legislation that was passed last year, which was so successful with the Tappan Zee Bridge, and I assume we're going to have very similar results at the Kosciuszko. Clearly, we're looking at innovative financing techniques and different ways to execute projects once they're selected.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much,
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Tobin. Before we conclude, there's one gentleman that really needs to be acknowledged, and that's Joe Taswell. Joe, I want to thank you on behalf of the council for keeping us focused and always responding to our needs, and you're a great fellow to work with.
24/7.
24/7.
You're here.
More comments. I want to thank my colleagues on the council for their very good work, and I find it a privilege working with all of you, and thank you for your diligence, your intelligence, and your focus. It's been a pleasure these past 3 years helping to advance the needs of New York City. And lastly, again, as I've done on previous occasions, to thank the governor for a wonderful approach for economic development. It's been well thought through and executed well, and we're glad to play a part in his vision to helping to create a more vibrant and exciting state through economic development. With that, our work is completed, and I want to thank all of you for coming this morning, and let's keep on moving. So we are adjourned.